The silence of deep space broke with a scream. Captain Lisa Stone sat in her command chair aboard the human exploration vessel Aurora, reviewing star charts of the Outer Rim territories. The ship hummed quietly as it traveled through the darkness. Between stars, her crew of 35 had been mapping unknown systems for 6 months now. Far from Earth and even farther from any other known civilization. The communications console erupted with an urgent beeping sound. Amy Carter, the communications officer, looked up from her station with wide eyes. She pressed her headset closer to her ear and frowned. "Captain, I'm picking up a transmission on all emergency frequencies," Amy said. Her voice carried concern. "It's not human." Lisa stood up and walked over to Amy's station. "Can you clean it up?" Amy's fingers danced across her controls. Static filled the bridge, then slowly cleared to reveal something none of them had ever heard before. The voice was melodic, almost like singing, but underneath the beauty was pure terror. "This is Elder Theses of the Zephrian Council," the voice said through the translator. "We send this message to any civilized beings who might hear us. Our world is dying. Our people are being murdered. We have no weapons. We have no soldiers. We know only peace and healing. But the Vorthans show us no mercy." The message continued, painting a picture of horror that made Lisa's stomach turn. The Vorthons were systematic in their cruelty. They had been bombing cities for weeks. They killed civilians not for resources or land, but simply because they enjoyed the act of killing. The Zephrians had tried to surrender, but the Vorthans ignored their attempts. "We offer our greatest treasures to anyone who will help us," the voice pleaded. "Our medical knowledge can heal wounds that other species consider fatal. Our technology can extend life by centuries. We ask only that someone, anyone, help us survive this darkness." The transmission ended with coordinates to the Zephro system, over 400 light-years away. The bridge fell silent except for the gentle hum of the ship's engines. Commander Jake Mitchell was the first to speak. He was Lisa's second in command, a careful man who always thought before acting. "Captain, we need to contact Earth Command immediately." Lisa nodded but kept staring at the communications console. "How long would it take for a message to reach Earth?" Amy checked her calculations. "At this distance, 6 weeks for the message to arrive, another 6 weeks for any response." "And how long for a fleet to reach the Zephro system?" Lisa asked. Jake pulled up the navigation charts. Even if Earth Command sent ships immediately, it would take them at least 4 months to get there. Dr. Ben Clark, the ship's xenobiologist, looked up from where he had been analyzing the transmission. "Captain, based on what we heard, the Zephrians might not have for months. The way that voice sounded, they might not have for weeks." Lisa walked back to her command chair and sat down. She had joined the exploration service to see new worlds and meet new species. She had never imagined she might have to make a decision about war and genocide. The Aurora was not a warship. It was a science vessel with light defensive weapons, and a crew trained for exploration, not combat. But it was also the only human ship within range of the Zephro system. "What do we know about these Vorthons?" Lisa asked. Ben pulled up what little information they had gathered from Galactic databases. "Not much. They're a military species from the Vorthan Empire. They've conquered 17 different worlds in the past century. Every species they've attacked has either been completely destroyed or enslaved, and the Zephrians, peaceful healers, have never been involved in any conflicts. Their entire culture is built around medicine and helping others. They don't even have a military." Lisa closed her eyes and thought about her options. She could follow protocol and contact Earth Command. That was the safe choice, the smart choice. But by the time help arrived, an entire species would be extinct. She could ignore the message and continue with her mission. Earth had no official relationship with them. It wasn't humanity's responsibility to police the galaxy, or she could take her small science ship into a war zone and try to help. Jake seemed to read her thoughts. "Captain, the Aurora isn't equipped for combat. You have 35 crew members, most of them scientists. If we go to Zephros, we might not come back." Lisa looked around the bridge at her crew. Amy was young, barely 25, fresh out of the academy with dreams of discovering new worlds. Jake had a wife and 2 children back on Earth. Ben had dedicated his life to studying alien life, not fighting alien wars. But she also thought about the voice in that transmission. The fear and desperation of an entire species facing extinction while the galaxy remains silent. "Amy, how long would it take us to reach the Zephro system?" Lisa asked. 18 days at maximum speed, Captain. Lisa stood up and looked out. At the stars visible through the bridge windows, somewhere out there, people were dying while others watched and did nothing. It reminded her of stories from Earth's history, when good people stayed silent while evil spread across the world. "Jake, what weapons do we have?" Jake looked uncomfortable. 2 pulse cannons, point defense lasers, and about 20 pulse rifles for the crew. The Aurora was never meant for combat, Captain. But we do have weapons? Yes. But they're nothing compared to what a real warship would carry. Lisa made her decision. She turned back to face her crew. "I'm changing our course for the Zephros. System, we're going to help the Zephyrians." The bridge erupted in surprised voices. Jake stepped forward. "Captain, I have to protest. This could be considered an act of war without authorization from Earth Command." "Then when we get back, I'll face a court-martial," Lisa said. "But I won't sit here and listen to an entire species beg for help while we do nothing." Amy looked scared, but determined. "Captain, what if the Vorthans have a whole fleet? What if we can't help?" Lisa sat back down in her command chair. "Then at least we'll have tried. And maybe our presence will buy the Zephyrians enough time for real help to arrive." Ben nodded slowly. "The Zephyrians mentioned their medical technology. If we can save them, it could benefit all of humanity." Jake sighed and shook his head. "This is crazy, Captain, but if we're doing this, we need to be smart about it. We need to study everything we can about Vorthone tactics and weapons during the trip." Lisa smiled for the first time since receiving the transmission. "Get me everything we have on the Vorthons. I want to know how they fight, what they fear, and how they think." "Amy, set course for Zephro's Prime, maximum speed." The Aurora changed direction, leaving behind its peaceful mission of exploration. The crew worked frantically to prepare for something none of them had ever trained for. They studied combat tactics, practiced with their limited weapons, and tried to figure out how a small science ship might make a difference in a war. As the ship raced through space toward an unknown battle, Lisa wondered if she had just saved her crew or doomed them. But every time she started to doubt herself, she remembered the voice in that transmission. The fear and hope mixed together. It's a desperate plea for someone, anyone, to care enough to help. 18 days later, they would emerge from hyperspace into a system at war. They would face an enemy that had conquered 17 worlds and destroyed countless species. But they would not face it alone, and they would not face it unprepared. The Aurora carried more than just weapons and crew, carried something the galaxy had not seen in over a century. It carried humans willing to fight for strangers, willing to risk everything for the simple principle that genocide should not be tolerated. The Vorthans were about to learn what happened when predators met an even deadlier species, one that had spent thousands of years learning how to wage war. The Aurora dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zephro system, and Captain Lisa Stone immediately knew they were too late. The planet that should have been a blue-green jewel surrounded by peaceful orbital stations was instead a burning world under siege. Massive black ships hung in space like metal vultures, their hulls bristling with weapons that fired down at the surface below. Each blast created new fires that could be seen even from space. "My God," whispered Amy Carter from her communications station. The young officer stared at the tactical display showing 12 Vorthan warships surrounding the planet. Each one was 3 times larger than the Aurora. Jake Mitchell ran scans of the system while trying to keep his voice steady. "Captain, I'm reading multiple impact sites across all continents. Cities that should have populations in the millions are showing no life signs at all." Lisa gripped the arms of her command chair. During the 18-day journey to reach this system, she had imagined many scenarios. She had prepared for battle, for negotiation, even for arriving too late to save anyone. But seeing the systematic destruction happening before her eyes was worse than anything she had imagined.
How?
Are there any Zephrian ships left? She asked. Negative, Jake replied. I'm detecting debris from what might have been their orbital defense platforms, but nothing functional. The Vorthons have complete control of space around the planet. Dr. Ben Clark looked up from his xenobiology station where he had been monitoring. All frequencies. Captain, I'm picking up transmissions from the planet's surface. They're very weak, but the translation software is working. There are still survivors down there. Lisa felt a spark of hope. Put it on speakers. The bridge filled with a sound that made everyone's blood run cold. It was screaming, but not just screams of pain. It was screams of terror, desperation, and the kind of fear that comes from watching everything you love being destroyed. Turn it off, Lisa ordered, but Ben shook his head. Captain, wait, there's something else. Ben adjusted his controls and filtered out some of the horrible sounds. Underneath the screams, there was something else. A melody, faint but unmistakable. They're still singing. The crew listened in amazement as the translation software picked up words within the melody. Even while their world burned around them, some Zephrians were still singing songs of hope and healing. The contrast between the beauty of their voices and the horror of their situation was almost unbearable. I'm getting a direct signal, Amy announced. Someone is trying to reach us specifically. Put it through. The voice that came through the speakers was different from the screaming and singing. It was calm, dignified, and spoke directly to them. Unknown vessel, this is Elder Thesis of the Zephrian Council.
Oh.
I do not know who you are or why you have come, but I thank whatever force in the universe brought you here. Lisa activated her transmitter. Elder Thesis, this is Captain Lisa Stone of the human vessel Aurora. We received your distress call. What is your situation? There was a long pause before Elder Thesis replied. Captain Stone, human. I do not know your species, but you are the first to respond to our calls for help. I am speaking to you from deep. Beneath our capital city, perhaps 2 million of my people remain alive on this world. 3 days ago, we numbered 50 million. The numbers hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. In just 3 days, the Vorthons had murdered 48 million innocent people. We are hiding in emergency shelters built for natural disasters, Elder Thesis continued. But the Vorthines are not satisfied with simply killing us from space. They have landed troops who hunt us through our own cities. They broadcast the screams of those they capture to break our spirit. Ben was frantically analyzing everything he could detect about the Zephrians. Captain, I'm getting biological readings from the planet. Zephrians are tall, thin beings with very delicate bone structure. They appear to be naturally peaceful, with no biological weapons or natural defenses. Elder Thises seem to hear. Their conversation through their open channel, Dr. Clark is correct. We are a species that evolved to heal, not to harm. We have never known war. Our greatest weapons before this invasion were medical instruments designed to save lives. Lisa studied the tactical display, showing the positions of the Vorthon ships. They were methodically taking turns bombing different areas of the planet. It was not random destruction. It was careful, systematic genocide designed to cause maximum suffering. Elder Thesis, can you tell us about the Vorthons? How do they fight? They are the opposite of everything we are, the Elder replied. They are built for war like we are built for healing. But Captain Stone, what disturbs me most is that they seem to enjoy the killing. They could have destroyed us quickly from space, but instead they make it slow. They want us to suffer. Jake pulled up what their sensors were detecting from the Vorthon ships. Captain, their technology is advanced, but not incredibly so. Those ships are powerful, but they're not invincible. The problem is, we're outnumbered 12-1. Lisa made a decision that surprised her crew. Amy opened a channel to the lead Vorthon ship. Captain? Jake looked shocked. What are you planning? I want to talk to them. The channel crackled. Open, and a harsh voice filled the bridge. The translator struggled with the Vorthon language before producing words. This is War Commander Zek of the Vorthon 4th Battle Fleet. Identify yourself, small ship. Lisa stood up and spoke clearly. This is Captain Lisa Stone of the human exploration vessel Aurora. I am ordering you to cease all hostile operations against the Zephyrians and withdraw from this system immediately. The sound that came back through the speakers was unmistakably laughter. When War Commander Zek stopped laughing, his voice carried amusement and contempt. Human, I have never heard of your species. But you are either very brave or very stupid to give orders to a Vorthan fleet. I am giving you one warning, Lisa continued. Stop the killing and leave this system, or face the consequences. Consequences? Zek laughed again. Small human ship, I command 12 warships and 10,000 soldiers. My fleet has conquered 17 worlds. What consequences could one tiny vessel possibly threaten us with? Lisa smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. You'll find out. She cut the channel and turned to her crew. Every face on the bridge was staring at her with expressions ranging from admiration to terror. Captain, Jake said carefully, we can't fight 12 warships. It would be suicide. You're right, Lisa agreed. We can't fight 12 warships. But we're not going to fight alone. Amy looked confused. Captain, there are no other ships in this system. We're the only ones who responded to the distress call. Lisa walked over to the communications console and began entering a very specific set of codes. Amy, I need you to send a message on a priority channel back to Earth. Tell them we have engaged hostile aliens in defense of a peaceful species. Tell them we need immediate military support. That message will take weeks to reach Earth, Jake pointed out. I know, but that's not the only message I'm sending. Lisa finished entering her codes and looked up at her crew. I'm also sending a message on the emergency frequency to any human ships within range. Military, civilian, or commercial. Anyone who can help. Ben looked at his readings again. Captain, there's something else. I've been studying the Vorthan transmissions. They're not just broadcasting their attacks randomly. They're recording everything. The screams, the destruction, all of it. Why would they do that? I think they're using it as psychological warfare against other species. They want the galaxy to know what happens to anyone who opposes them. Lisa nodded grimly. Then they're about to learn what happens when they threaten someone under human protection. Elder Tice's voice came through their speakers again. Captain Stone, the Vorthans are landing more troops in our city. They have found one of our shelters. The screaming you hear now is my own people dying. Lisa closed her eyes and listened to the sounds of innocent people being murdered. When she opened them again, her expression was harder than steel. Elder, this is. I need you to do something for me. I need you to keep your people alive for 72 more hours. Can you do that? I do not know, Captain. We are not fighters. We do not know how to hide from predators. And I'll teach you. Ben, Amy, Jake, I need you to work with Elder Thizis. Help them find better hiding places. Teach them basic survival tactics. Anything that might keep them alive a little longer. Jake looked at his captain with growing understanding. Captain, you're expecting reinforcements. Lisa smiled, and this time it was genuine. Commander, you don't know much about human history, do you? When humans hear that innocent people are being slaughtered? When we hear that bullies are picking on someone who can't fight back? We don't just send one ship to help. She looked out at the Vorthon fleet still systematically destroying the planet below. We send everything. 71 hours had passed since Captain Lisa Stone made her promise to Elder Thizis. The Aurora had spent that time hiding behind the system's largest moon, helping the surviving Zephyrians find better hiding places and avoid Vorthan hunting parties. But with each hour, fewer voices answered their calls. Captain Amy Carter reported from her station, her voice heavy with exhaustion. I'm only detecting signals from 6 shelter locations now. Yesterday, there were 15. Lisa stood at the bridge windows, staring out at the darkness of space. For 3 days, she had projected confidence to her crew and to the Zephyrians, but privately, she was starting to wonder if her gamble had failed. Maybe no one had received their emergency transmission. Maybe no one was coming. Jake Mitchell looked up from his tactical display. The Vorthans are moving into the final phase of their operation. They're preparing to glass the remaining cities from orbit. Once they do, that nothing will survive on the planet's surface. Dr. Ben Clark had barely slept in 3 days. He had been working around the clock to coordinate with the Zephrian survivors, teaching them human survival techniques that seemed alien to their peaceful nature. Captain Elder Thesis is asking about our promise. The people in the shelters are losing hope. Lisa was about to respond when Amy suddenly straightened at her console. Captain, I'm detecting something at the edge of the system. Multiple hyperspace signatures incoming. Jake immediately began scanning. Confirmed.
Account.
Wait. His voice changed from tired to amazed. Captain, I count 47 ships dropping out of hyperspace. The main screen lit up with dozens of new contacts appearing throughout the system. Lisa felt her heart racing as she recognized the profiles of human vessels. Oh, but these weren't exploration ships like the Aurora. These were warships, freighters converted for combat, mining vessels bristling with improvised weapons, and even a few luxury liners that had been armed for battle. My God, whispered Amy. They actually came. The communications board erupted with incoming messages. Amy worked frantically to sort through them all. Captain, I'm getting signals from the Earth defense ship Retribution, the commercial hauler Strongarm, the mining ship Deep Digger, and, Captain, there are ships here from 12 different human colonies. Lisa felt tears forming in her eyes. During humanity's short time in space, they had spread to dozens of worlds. Each colony was independent, with its own government and priorities. But when they heard that innocent people were being slaughtered, when they learned that humans had declared war on genocide, they had dropped everything to help. Put me through to the fleet, Lisa ordered. This is Admiral Carl Johnson aboard. The Retribution, came a gruff voice through the speakers. Captain Stone, I got your message about aliens murdering civilians. Figured you might need some backup. Lisa smiled for the first time in days. Admiral Johnson was a legend in the human military. He had fought in the Mars colonial wars and commanded the defense of Europa Station during the asteroid pirate attacks. If anyone could handle the Vorthons, it was him. Admiral, the situation is worse than we reported. The Vorthons have already killed over 40 million Zephrians. Only a few 100,000 remain alive. Well then, Admiral Johnson replied, his voice turning cold. Looks like we got here just in time to return the favor. The human fleet began spreading out through the system, taking positions that surrounded the Vorthon ships. Lisa watched in amazement as vessels that had never been designed to work together moved with practiced coordination. Miners who had spent years fighting pirates worked alongside military vessels. Colony defense ships took orders from commercial. Captains who had experience in combat zones, War Commander Zek had apparently noticed the new arrivals. His voice crackled over the emergency frequency, no longer sounding amused. Human vessels, you are interfering in a legitimate military operation of the Vorthon Empire. Withdraw immediately or face destruction. Admiral Johnson's response was broadcast on all frequencies so both the Vorthons and Zephrians could hear it. War Commander Zek, this is Admiral Carl Johnson of the Human Defense Fleet. You have exactly 10 minutes to cease all hostile operations against the Zephrians and begin withdrawing from this system. You dare threaten us? Zek's voice carried outrage. We are the Vorthon 4th Battle Fleet. We have conquered 17 worlds. We will not be intimidated by primitives from an unknown species. 9 minutes, Admiral Johnson replied calmly. Lisa, opened a channel to Elder These. It's Elder. This is Captain Stone. Do you see what's happening up here? Captain, our instruments detect many new ships. Are these more of your people? Yes, Elder. These are humans from across our space. They came because they heard your people were in danger. There was a long pause before Elder Theses responded. Captain, I do not understand. Your species barely knows us. We have nothing to offer you that would justify this risk. Why would so? Many of your people come to fight for strangers. Lisa thought about how to explain human nature to a species that had never known war. Elder, humans have a saying, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. When we heard about the Vorthons, when we learned what they were doing to your people, doing nothing was not an option. 10 minutes? Passed in tense silence. The Vorthon ships maintained their positions around the planet, still firing down at the remaining cities. Zek apparently believed the humans were bluffing. He was wrong. All ships, Admiral Johnson's voice carried across the fleet communication network. The Vorthons have chosen war. Remember, we're here to save the people on that planet. Every minute we delay, more Zephrians die. Make it quick, make it decisive, and show these butchers what happens when they threaten innocent people. What happened next was unlike any battle the galaxy had ever seen. The Vorthons were used to fighting peaceful species who relied on shields and defensive tactics. They were completely unprepared for humans who had spent centuries perfecting the art of aggressive warfare. The human attack came from all directions at once. The Retribution and 3 other military vessels engaged the main Vorthon battle group head-on, their weapons designed to punch through heavy armor. Meanwhile, smaller ships attacked from above and below, targeting engines and weapon systems with surgical precision. But what shocked the Vorthons most was the civilian ships. The converted freighters didn't try to match the Vorthons in a traditional battle. Instead, they used tactics that would have been considered dishonorable by galactic standards, but were perfectly normal for humans. They used electronic warfare to jam Vorthon communications. They deployed chaff and decoys to confuse enemy targeting systems. It even rammed damaged Vorthon ships when their weapons ran out of ammunition. Captain Pete Wilson of the mining vessel Deep Digger had spent 20 years fighting asteroid pirates. When his ship's main guns were destroyed, he didn't retreat. Instead, he used his mining lasers to cut through the hull of a Vorthon destroyer while broadcasting mining songs over the enemy's communication system. The luxury liner Golden Star had been converted to carry refugees from the colonial wars. Captain Nancy Green used her ship's powerful engines to stay just out of range of Vorthon weapons while her passengers, armed with hunting rifles, fired at enemy fighters through the ship's observation windows. Within 2 hours, 8 of the 12 Vorthon ships had been destroyed or disabled. The remaining 4 were trying to flee the system when Admiral Johnson made an announcement that would be remembered throughout galactic history. War Commander Zek, this is your final warning. Surrender. Now, or be destroyed. But understand this. The Vorthon Empire has made an enemy of humanity today. We will not forget what you have done here. Will not forgive the murder of 40 million innocent people, and we will not allow it to happen again. Zek's response came as his flagship tried to escape toward the edge of the system. Humans, you have no idea what you have started. The Empire will send fleets to crush you. Your worlds will burn as this one has burned. Admiral Johnson's reply was cold and final. Commander, you're welcome to try, but I should warn you, Earth is not a peaceful world like Zephro's. We are what the galaxy calls a death world. Our entire species evolved fighting wars against each other. We've had thousands of years to perfect the art of killing. The human fleet moved to intercept the fleeing Vorthon ships. The battle was swift and decisive. When it was over, no Vorthon vessel remained intact in the system. Elder Tice's voice came over the communication system, filled with wonder and confusion. Captain Stone, the bombardment has stopped. The sky above our cities is clear. But I must ask, what kind of people are humans? In 3 hours, you accomplished what we could not do in 3 weeks of suffering. Lisa thought carefully before answering. Elder, humans come from a world where survival required constant struggle. We learned long ago that sometimes the only way to protect the innocent is to be more dangerous than those who would harm them. As rescue ships began landing on Zephro's Prime to help the survivors, Lisa realized that this battle was just the beginning. Word of what happened here would spread throughout the galaxy. Other peaceful species would learn that there was now someone willing to fight for them. And predatory species like the Vorthons would learn that the galaxy had a new protector. 3 days after the battle ended, Captain Lisa Stone stood in what had once been the beautiful capital city of Zephro's Prime. The streets were filled with rubble and ash. But something remarkable was happening among the ruins. Humans and Zephrians were working side by side to dig. Survivors from collapsed buildings and set up medical stations for the wounded. The sight should have been hopeful. But Lisa could see the fear in the Zephrian faces whenever they looked at their human rescuers. The same people who had saved them from genocide were now frightening them in ways the Zephrians didn't understand. Elder Thissus approached Lisa carefully. His tall, graceful form moving with the natural elegance of his species. His translucent, Skin showed patterns of blue and silver that Dr. Ben Clark had learned meant confusion and worry. "Captain Stone," Elder Thesis said, his melodic voice carrying concern, "I must speak with you about your soldiers." Lisa followed the elder's gaze to where Colonel Danny Rodriguez was training a group of human volunteers in urban combat techniques. They were practicing how to clear buildings and search for hidden enemies. To humans, it looked like necessary military training. To the peaceful Zephrians, it looked like people learning how to hunt and kill with terrifying efficiency. "What troubles you, Elder?" "Your people," Thesis said slowly. "Yesterday, I watched one of your soldiers continue fighting after being shot 3 times. He did not fall down. He did not cry out in pain. He simply kept moving and returned fire at his enemies. How is this possible?" Lisa realized the elder was talking about Sergeant Kelly Adams, who had been wounded during the final cleanup operations against remaining Vorthan ground forces. Kelly had taken bullets to her arm, shoulder, and leg, but had kept fighting until all civilians in the area were safe. "Humans are built differently than your people, Elder. We can handle more damage and keep functioning. But it is not just the physical differences." These is continued. "I have been working with Dr. Clark to treat your wounded, and what I see disturbs me. Your people seem to feel less pain than we do. Some of them even appear to enjoy the fighting." Lisa knew what the elder meant. Some humans did find combat exciting. The rush of adrenaline, the satisfaction of protecting others, the pride in overcoming a dangerous enemy. These were normal human emotions, but to a species that had never known violence, they seemed alien and frightening. Dr. Ben Clark joined their conversation, carrying a medical scanner and looking exhausted. He had been working with Zephrian healers to treat both human and alien wounded, and the experience had taught him things about both species that he hadn't expected. "Captain," Ben said, "I need to show you something. The Zephrians have been studying our biology while treating our wounded. What they've discovered is making them very nervous." Ben led Lisa and Elder Thesis to a medical station where several Zephrian healers were examining scan results. The lead healer, whose name translated as Gentle Hands, looked up at them with large, worried eyes. "Captain Stone, Gentle Hands," said through the translator, "your species is unlike anything we have ever encountered. Your bodies are designed for violence in ways we did not think were possible." The healer activated a holographic display showing human and Zephrian anatomical comparisons. The differences were startling. Where Zephrians had one heart, humans had a cardiovascular system with multiple backup pathways. Where Zephrians had fragile bones suited for their peaceful world, humans had dense, strong skeletons built to handle impacts. Where Zephrians had organs optimized for efficiency, humans had redundant systems that could keep functioning even when severely damaged. "Your people can survive injuries that would kill any Zephrian instantly," Gentle Hands continued. "But more than that, your brains produce chemicals during combat that make you faster, stronger, and less sensitive to pain. It is as if your entire species was designed for war." Elder Thesis nodded sadly. "This is what frightens my people, Captain. We called for help, and it came. But the help came from a species that is everything we are not. We heal, you destroy. We create, you conquer. We sing songs of peace. You wage war with efficiency that terrifies us." Lisa felt a wave of sadness wash over her. The Zephrians were grateful to be alive, but they were also afraid of their rescuers. She was trying to think of how to respond when alarms began sounding throughout the city. "Jake." Mitchell's voice came through Lisa's communicator. "Captain, we've got a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting Vorthan ships approaching the system. It looks like they sent reinforcements." Lisa, Ben, and Elder Thesis rushed to the temporary command center that had been set up in one of the few intact buildings. Admiral Johnson was already there, studying tactical displays with his staff officers. "How many ships?" Lisa asked. 24 warships, Admiral Johnson replied grimly. "Bigger than the last fleet, they'll be here in 6 hours." Lises looked at the display with growing despair. They have come for revenge. The Vorthons will not allow their defeat to go unpunished. But Admiral Johnson was smiling. Elder, you don't understand something about humans. We don't just fight when we're attacked. We fight to win. And winning means making sure the enemy can't come back for revenge. The Admiral activated his communication system and sent a message to all human ships in the system. All vessels. This is Admiral Johnson. We've got more Vorthons incoming. I want every ship ready for battle in 4 hours. I want them to understand that attacking innocent people comes with a price they can't afford to pay. For hours, Lisa watched her species prepare for war with an efficiency that amazed even her. The human fleet didn't just get ready to defend themselves. They prepared to send a message that would be heard throughout the galaxy. Captain Pete Wilson, of the mining ship Deep Digger, had lost his main guns in the previous battle. But his crew had spent 3 days turning their mining equipment into weapons. They had created torpedo launchers from ore processing tubes and turned their rock crushers into close-range combat systems. Captain Nancy Green of the luxury liner Golden Star had converted her ship's entertainment systems into electronic warfare equipment. Her passengers, mostly civilian refugees, had volunteered to operate communication jammers and censored decoys. But what impressed Lisa most was how the humans worked with their Zephrian allies. Despite their fear of human combat abilities, the Zephrians wanted to help. They couldn't fight, but they could provide intelligence about Vorthon tactics and technology from their previous encounters. Elder Thesis approached Admiral Johnson with an offer that surprised everyone. Admiral, my people have developed medical technology that could help your wounded survive injuries that would normally be fatal. We offer this knowledge freely to those who saved us. The Admiral looked at the Elder with new respect. That's a generous offer, Elder, but are you sure? This technology could make humans even more dangerous in combat. Yes, Thesis replied. We understand that. But we have learned something important about your species in these past days. You are dangerous, yes. You're frightening, yes. But you use your dangerous nature to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Perhaps the galaxy needs such protectors. When the Vorthon fleet arrived, they found something they hadn't expected. The humans weren't hiding behind defensive positions. Instead, they had spread out through the system and were actively hunting the Vorthon ships. The battle that followed was even more one-sided than the first. The Vorthons had brought larger ships and more weapons, but they were still using traditional galactic warfare tactics. The humans had spent the past 3 days learning from their previous mistakes and developing new ways to hurt their enemies. Lieutenant Rick Barnes, who had been captured during ground operations and tortured by Vorthon soldiers, was now piloting a fighter equipped with weapons designed specifically to penetrate Vorthon armor. When his fighter was damaged and about to be destroyed, he didn't try to escape. Instead, he rammed his ship into the command bridge of the Vorthon flagship, broadcasting human war songs on all frequencies as his ship exploded. The message was clear. Humans didn't just fight to win battles. They fought to make sure their enemies never wanted to fight them again. When the last Vorthon ship was destroyed, Admiral Johnson sent a message on all galactic emergency frequencies. This is Admiral Carl Johnson of the Human Defense Fleet. Let it be known throughout the galaxy that the Vorthon Empire attempted genocide against the peaceful Zephrian people. Let it also be known that humanity will not tolerate such actions. Any species that attacks innocent civilians will face the same fate as the Vorthon 4th and 7th battle fleets. Elder Thesis listened to the Admiral's message and then looked at Lisa with something that might have been understanding. Captain Stone, I think I begin to comprehend what humans are. Are predators. Yes. But you are predators who hunt other predators. You are the wolves who protect the sheep from the monsters. Lisa nodded. We learned long ago, Elder, that the only way to have peace is to be ready for war. The only way to protect the innocent is to be more dangerous than those who would harm them. As rescue operations continued on Zephro's Prime, word of the human victory spread throughout the galaxy. Peaceful species began to hope that they might finally have protectors. Aggressive species began to reconsider their plans for conquest. 6 months after the liberation of Zephro's Prime, Captain Lisa Stone sat in the council chambers of the Galactic Assembly on the neutral world of Harmony Station. She wore the new uniform of the Terran Protection Fleet, dark blue with silver. markings that had already become famous throughout the galaxy. Around her sat representatives from 43 different species, and every one of them was staring at her. The emergency session had been called to discuss what everyone was calling the human problem. In 6 months, everything in the galaxy had changed. Species that had lived in fear for centuries were suddenly demanding protection. Aggressive empires that had built their power on conquest were retreating to their home systems. And at the center of it all was humanity, a species that most of the galaxy had never heard of before the Zephro's incident. Ambassador Helen Parker stood to address the assembly. She was Earth's first official representative to the Galactic community, a former diplomat who had spent her career handling difficult negotiations, but nothing in her experience had prepared her for this. Honored representatives, Helen began, I understand that many of you have concerns about humanity's recent actions. I am here to address those concerns and to explain Earth's position on galactic affairs. The first to speak was Counselor Vex of the Crystalline Collective, a species that communicated through light patterns. Ambassador Parker, in 6 months, your species has destroyed 2 entire Vorthan fleets, established military bases in 14 systems, and begun what you call protection patrols throughout this sector. Many species fear that humanity is simply replacing the Vorthans as galactic conquerors. Helen had expected this accusation. Counselor Vex, I understand your concerns, but I would like to point out that every system where humans have established a presence has specifically requested our protection. We have not conquered anyone. We have not demanded tribute. We have not enslaved populations. We have simply responded to calls for help. Elder Thysis rose from his seat. The Zephrian leader had become humanity's strongest supporter in the assembly, despite his people's initial fears. If I may speak, he said, his melodic voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. My people were hours away from extinction when Captain Stone and her crew arrived. The galaxy watched us die for weeks and did nothing. Only humans came to help. But at what cost? Interrupted Representative Korth of the Peaceful Union, Elder Thysis. We have all seen the reports from Zephro's Prime. Human soldiers taught your people how to fight, how to kill. They turned your world into a military base. Is this the kind of help your people wanted? Elder Tice's skin patterns shifted to show determination. Representative Korth, you speak of the cost of human help. Let me tell you about the cost of galactic peace. For 100 years, the Vorthons destroyed 17 worlds. Billions of people died while the galaxy talked about diplomatic solutions and peaceful negotiations. The cost of human help is that my people learned to defend themselves. The cost of galactic peace was genocide. Helen nodded and activated a holographic display showing a map of the galaxy. Representatives, I would like you to see what has happened since humans began our protection operations. The display lit up with data from the past 6 months. In systems under human protection, trade had increased by 300%. Scientific cooperation had flourished as peaceful species no longer feared sharing their knowledge with potential conquerors. Birth rates had increased on dozens of worlds as parents no longer lived in constant fear for their children's future. But the display also showed something else. Aggressive species like the Vorthans had stopped their expansion entirely. Pirate attacks had dropped to almost zero. Slavery, which had been common in many parts of the galaxy, was disappearing as slavers learned that humans considered enslaved people to be innocent civilians, worthy of protection. The results speak for themselves, Helen continued. Peace, through strength, is not just a human concept, it is working. Counselor Drex of the warrior clan spoke next. His species had built their culture around honorable combat, and they were among the few who truly understood what humans represented. Ambassador Parker, my people respect strength, but we are concerned about human methods. Your species fights without honor, without rules, without limits.
You use tactics that would be considered dishonorable by any civilized warrior? Helen smiled slightly. Counselor Drex, you are correct. Humans do not fight with honor when innocent people are being murdered. We fight to win quickly and decisively.
We use whatever tactics are necessary to protect those who cannot protect themselves. If that makes us uncivilized in your eyes, we accept that judgment. Captain Lisa Stone was asked to address the assembly about military operations. She stood and looked around the chamber at species she had only heard about in reports. Some were clearly afraid of her, others seemed curious, few appeared hostile. Representatives, Lisa began, 6 months ago, my ship responded to a distress call. We found an entire species being systematically murdered while the galaxy watched. We made a choice that day. We chose to act instead of debate. We chose to save lives instead of following protocol. She paused and looked directly at the representatives who seemed most hostile to human presence. Some of you think humans are too violent, too aggressive, too willing to use force. You are correct. We are all of those things. But we are those things because our world taught us that predators only understand strength. Bullies only stop when someone stronger stands up to them. Representative Ming of the Trade Federation raised a concern that many species shared. Captain Stone, what happens when humans decide that some species are not worth protecting? What happens when you become the predators instead of the protectors? Lisa had thought about this question many times since Zephro's. Representative Ming, I cannot promise that will never happen. Humans are not perfect. We have made terrible mistakes in our own history. But I can tell you this. Every human ship in the protection fleet is crewed by volunteers who joined specifically to protect innocent people. They are not conquerors seeking glory. They are people who heard others crying for help and could not ignore that cry. Elder Theses stood again. If I may, I would like to share something with the assembly. My people have been working closely with humans for 6 months now. We have learned much about their nature. The elder activated his own display, showing biological and psychological data that Zephorian healers had gathered. Humans are indeed predators. Their bodies and minds are designed for combat in ways that peaceful species find frightening. But they are predators with an unusual trait. They form protective bonds, not just with their own species, but with any species they perceive as innocent or helpless. The data showed brain scans of human soldiers during combat operations. When fighting against aggressive enemies, their brain patterns showed focus and determination. But when protecting civilians, especially alien civilians, the patterns showed something else entirely. The same protective instincts humans showed toward their own children. Humans do not just fight for territory or resources, Elder These continued, they fight for principles. They fight because they believe that innocent people should not suffer. This is not a political choice for them. It is a biological imperative. The debate continued for hours, but gradually the tone shifted. Fear and suspicion gave way to cautious acceptance as representatives began to understand what humanity offered. It was not perfect protection, and it came with costs. But for the first time in galactic history, the weak had someone willing to stand between them and the monsters. The final vote was close, but humanity was officially recognized as a galactic peacekeeping force. The Terran Protection Fleet would be allowed to operate throughout civilized space, responding to requests for aid from peaceful species. Admiral Carl Johnson was promoted to Fleet Admiral and given command of the new organization. His headquarters would be on Zephro's Prime, now rebuilt as a joint human-Zephorian world that served as both a military base and a medical research center. Captain Lisa Stone was promoted to Admiral and given command of the fleet's Rapid Response Division. Her ship, the Aurora, was rebuilt as a command vessel capable of coordinating rescue operations across multiple star systems. But perhaps the most important change was not in military structure or political recognition. It was in the galaxy itself. For the first time in centuries, peaceful species could develop their civilizations without fear. Scientists could share knowledge without worrying about creating weapons for their enemies. Children could grow up believing they would live to see adulthood. The price of this peace was constant vigilance by those willing to fight for it. Human ships patrolled the dark spaces between stars, hunting for predators who might threaten the innocent. Human soldiers trained allied forces to defend themselves. Human diplomats worked to prevent conflicts before they required military solutions. Elder Theses had been right in his assessment. Humans were wolves who protected sheep from monsters. They were predators who hunted other predators. They were The galaxy's immune system, identifying and eliminating threats to peaceful civilization. As Admiral Lisa Stone looked out at the stars from her command ship, she thought about the message her species had sent to the galaxy.